California is at it again with their extreme emissions regulations that could make cars more expensive for all of us, no matter where you live. And we're talking about impossible quotas, massive fines for automakers, and even a new gas tax it's going to make drivers furious. We already know it. But here's the kicker. Even electric cars in California are starting to get so expensive to charge that even gasoline is starting to look like a cheaper option. So what does this mean for your next car and your wallet? Here with more is Lauren Fix. She's an automotive expert and she joins us now. So Lauren, you recently wrote about this for the Blaze.com, and it was about big emissions scams and the impact of California's mandate on car manufacturing. So tell us more.
There's a lot going on. So right now, California currently has from the California Air Resources Board a mandate that by 2026, 35% of all vehicles sold in the state of California should be all electric. That's 2026 is like two model years. Actually, we're driving 2026s right now. And that by 2030, all electric, and that no vehicles will be allowed to be sold in the state that are gasoline powered. That's going to be a problem considering the cost of electricity there is the highest in the country. And some of the things that Gavin Newsom's putting into place are just totally impossible, besides the fact that they're making it a mandate. So that means if you have an older car, you won't be able to sell it in the state. You'll have to buy out of state, which people will, and people will move in and out of the state. But what says in the article, and this is really interesting, there's a lot more to this, but besides the fact that it's costing each car that's sold today, every car that's sold today as we speak, has a $20,000 fine on top of it for not meeting the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, which is funny because that's carburetor in my book, fee on top of it. So every manufacturer is paying a loss of $20,000 on every car that's sold. So what they're doing in exchange is California has heard a lot of complaints from consumers. So they said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to offer you, if you put an electric charger in your home, we're going to give you a credit, and that's a pass-through rate of about 47 cents for every single driver that will help them cover some of the costs of roads and bridges repairs. But don't worry, that's not the way it actually works. It's California. They're going to add a 68-cent tax starting the first of the year on every car that's sold. So that'll make it even more expensive. So the idea is to incentivize you to give up your gasoline-powered vehicle, but then you have a car payment, higher insurance rates, and no place to charge.
Lauren, can you drill down a little bit more on how this is not only going to impact people in California? Because I think a lot of times people hear this and think, you know what, it's crazy. You know, I'm glad I'm not there anymore. I think that's why I moved, you know. But it's not going to just affect people there.
No, it's going to actually affect the whole country because car manufacturers are not going to build a car just for the state of California. They're going to build a car for the entire country. Now, back when I was a kid, there was California emissions listed as a line item, and you thought, oh boy, that's the car you don't want to buy. But today, because 17 states side with the state of California, which include New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Colorado, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Delaware, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I don't live in California. But those laws work together because those governors have all agreed that whatever California does, we're going to do. And so that leaves other states like Texas and Michigan and Florida saying, well, we don't want these standards. We're going to let people drive whatever they want, which is why people move there. But manufacturers are never going to build a car for 17 states for that one way and the rest for everyone else. So what President Trump will most likely do, and he's done this before, but I think he did it too late in his term. If I had his ear, I would tell him, go after the California Air Resources Board, get them to dissipate, because President Obama gave them even more power. So whatever California says, the entire country is forced to follow it. Car manufacturers can't afford to have billions of dollars in fines. Instead, they're taking millions of dollars in losses, and we're all paying for it.
Yeah, and Lauren, you mentioned Florida, and that makes me think of the hurricanes with Helene and Milton. And you go with hurricanes and electric vehicles, and we all have seen the videos of the electric vehicles starting on fire in people's garages and just lighting the whole place up. I mean, what kind of demand is there right now for electric vehicles?
Well, I was actually in that area of Southeast Florida during Hurricane Ian. And I remember there was all kinds of announcements saying, if you have an electric car, park it outside, especially if it's flooded. And sure enough, cars were catching fire. And I went by a salvage yard and had a nice conversation with one of them. It was a brand new, beautiful Porsche parked next to a Tesla, a lot of great cars. And I said, what's the story? He goes, these cars are waterlogged. You don't want them, especially anything that's electric. I knew that, but I kind of wanted to hear it right from somebody who was living it day to day. Electric car sales in the state of Florida are not great. They're only, doing well in certain blue cities where there's some sort of incentive, and that incentive will go away. The moment President Trump puts his hand on that Bible on January 20th, that mandate disappears. The $7,500 tax credit will disappear. That's all part of what he promised, and I have no doubt that he will do that. And I'm hoping that when Sean Duffy takes over on the Department of Transportation, the first thing he's going to do is go after the California Air Resources Board. That is not something to wait. We need to get on that immediately so that car manufacturers can make money, which means more jobs, better product for us, and lower cost vehicles.
Speaking personally for myself, I wasn't going to buy an electric car until I saw that Jaguar ad. And then it just convinced me, seems like a great idea.
Yeah.
Let's talk
that's
about
a whole other conversation. I have an article coming out for that.
That we need to have with you at some point. But I want to talk about this other piece you wrote at the Blaze about how the states are blatantly violating the Constitution by charging drivers for every mile they drive. What's going on here? How are states doing this and enforcing this? Because this is disturbing.
Well, because they can get away with it, just like anything else. One state should not be giving the rules for all the other 49 states. Well, that's what's happening with California. And in this case, there was actually, this is way back from the 1800s, there was a legal case, and it's all in the article, so I don't have to spout out the actual case. But I do cover all the legalese on why it is actually illegal to charge by the mile, especially if you're in between states. So California is going to be charging by the mile. So is Nevada, Oregon, Washington State already charge that. So if you have an electric vehicle, they wanted higher fuel efficient cars, which means you use less gasoline, which means there's less money in the fund for roads and bridges. So they're going to make it up by double charging you and charging you by the mile. And how is the government supposed to know, oh, you're no longer in California, you're now in Nevada, oh, you're driving to New York, you're driving across country? It doesn't know that. It takes your total mileage and it sends you a bill. And people are like, well, I'm not going to pay it. Well, it's a tax, so people typically do pay it. But by law, believe it or not, the Constitution states, and it's in legalese, and I cover that in the article, that it is illegal for anyone to be charging by the mile for interstate or intrastate travel. And that is what it came up to in the 1800s. It was stagecoach days. And here we are charging people, and people are paying it. So maybe we need to get either a class action lawsuit or get some attorneys involved.